What do you think of the new NVIDIA Raspberry Pi competitor? One, it's not really a new competitor, and two, it's kind of cool. I will probably buy one myself because it's got a real GPU on it. So if you want to do any kind of AI type tasks. So there's something called the Jetson. Is it the Jetson Nano? So the Jetson is like the series. It's NVIDIA Jetson blah. I do believe it's called the Nano. I may be incorrect on that. It's about a it's about $250 SoC system on a chip computer, basically like the Raspberry Pi. The difference with it is being $250, it has a lot more power to it. They've got all kinds of fancy specs that don't really mean a damn thing until you actually run software on it. But the cool part is it has a real GPU. So one of the issues you run into with the Raspberry Pi, even the Raspberry Pi 5, which I like, no snark for the 5, is it doesn't have a built-in GPU. So if you're doing any kind of AI tasks, uh, training AI, obviously, but also like Olama, if you're going to use Olama for LLMs, any of that kind of thing, if you're going to use OpenCV, some other stuff, basically, Raspberry Pi 5, you just simply don't have a GPU on there. So the nice thing with the Jetson is that it actually has a real NVIDIA GPU. Now, to be clear, when I say GPU, the entire thing costs 250 bucks. So I mean, whatever. You're not playing Crisis at like 4K, 120 frames per second. But it is good. Supposedly, it's good for AI functionality and robots and that type of thing. And the other thing that's cool about the Jetson is it actually gives you the GPIO pins too. So you can be running the AI models directly on board, have inputs, have outputs, have all kinds of wacky things happen. So yeah, I probably will actually be getting a Jetson. I don't know, as they say, at some point in the next month or so, because I do want to start learning myself a little bit more and then teaching a little bit more of these advanced AI concepts. Get the hell out of the world of ChatGPT. ChatGPT is fine, it's fine, but there's other stuff in AI. And so that's one of the things you can do with the Jetson boards. You can do a lot of other cool stuff. And they have, step-by-step procedures on how to build things, image recognition, that kind of stuff. And so I will probably be buying one of those boards, you know, in the future. In the future. If you're looking at a Jetson board and you're wondering whether or not you should buy it, it really comes down to that whole AI thing. Like, do you actually need AI? And like actually need AI in your projects? And then two, do you need something that small? Like, as you guys know, I like building robots. I love IoT. I like building robots. I like building small computers, small low power computers. So the Jetson, again, 250 bucks. It's fine. It's fine for me. I mean, for you guys out there, if you've already got a desktop computer, if you got a Windows computer, desktop Windows computer already, I don't know, slapping in, taking that $250 plus a little extra money to actually buy a real GPU card or a graphics card to shove into your system might do you a little better. Again, it all comes down to that whole what are your requirements? What are you actually trying to build for? And right, that's where like with this is my little toy from last year. Hopefully, I'm going to get this up and running with my right robot in a little bit. This is actually a full-fledged computer. So this comes from Geekom, Geekom. They bought Intel's NUC division. You know how Intel has been failing miserably for a couple of years, and so they're selling off their really cool products. Well, the NUCs, the NUCs, next unit computing, are really cool. Basically, the idea is like really small computers, but they're still pretty powerful. And Geekom, of all companies, bought that unit from them. And so they build small Intel-based computers, and they also build small AMD-based computers. And again, AMD is currently winning right now. So I do believe this is an A6. I do believe this is an A6, and it's an ASUS thing. But basically, with this, it's actually got Oh, I forget last time I looked at the specs. 4 gigahertz processor in here with multiple cores. I'm not quite sure. It's like 4 cores or something at 4 gigahertz. It's got 32 gigs of RAM. It has a 1 terabyte NVMe solid state drive, and it actually has a real graphic, like an actual graphics card in here. An AMD, it's AMD graphics card, but it actually has a real graphics card in here. So this is what I run my robot off of. So I have a little AI powered, or I had. It's in parts right now. Anyways, I have the parts for a AI powered robot, and this is actually what I use for it. The issue though is that this requires like real power supply. Not doesn't require like a 700 watt power supply, but it actually requires a real power supply. And so that's why, in order to power my robot, when I use one of these things, I just got myself as a gift, an early Christmas gift, this thing. So this is a battery. So lithium ion battery, goal zero. Basically, it has an AC output. So I can power a full-fledged computer with a real graphics card off of this thing and put that onto a robot. And so we'll see what happens. So basically, when I have my robot running, this little thing should be able to power the computer itself. It actually is able to power a monitor so I can see what the hell's going on. And it actually powers the motors to make the little robot run around. Why I got this for myself as a gift is I had this. Uh, so again, Goal Zero, I actually own Goal Zero. These are good products. They don't sponsor me. They should give me money though. Anyways, I've been always using this for a couple of years, and this is actually great. So this goes on my little robot, powers everything. One of the issues that you run into though is weight, because the motors that I'm using, you know, aren't the greatest motors in the world. And so this is a 5 pound battery. So this is a lead acid battery. Good performance, but it's 5 pounds. No big deal when you're picking it up, but when a robot's trying to move it around, it's an issue. And so with this being a lithium ion battery, this is only 2 pounds. So basically by swapping this for this. Anyways, by putting this on instead of this one, I get 3 more pounds back, which on my crappy little robot projects actually matters a lot. Like 3 pounds is huge. You know what I can do with 3 pounds? A lot. Um, so yeah, so I got things. And again, that goes back to the whole thing of like, again, what is good and what is adequate and what doesn't function. It really depends on like what is your situation. Again, I'm having a robot trying to run around. I want to make the power system as simple and as safe as possible. I prefer using these types of things. So literally, this worked, but this gives me 3 additional pounds for the robot. So we're going to be using this. So that's one thing too I've been thinking about is with the oh, with the Jetson. The Jetson is really it is bigger than the Raspberry Pi, so it does weigh a little bit more than the Raspberry Pi. But this is probably, I don't know, this is 2 pounds. Like this is probably a pound. This is probably a pound. So this is like 3 pounds. Again, on a robot, that matters. And so, if I can get a lot of the power of this for something, I mean, this is even half a pound. I don't know how many ounces one of these damn things is. But you know what I'm saying? If I could get the performance that I need that I'm currently getting out of this, but I can get it again for half the weight, that starts to become a real value proposition. So, anyways, things to be considering in the real world of technology. How oh, how much weight can your little robot handle? My little robot can't handle very much weight. Okay. Is that comparable to the new Mac Mini? Um, this thing, God knows with specs and all this. So I got this about a year ago. So, I don't know. Go take a look at the Mac Mini. Go take a look at this. One or the other. The big thing with this is that it does have it does have an actual AMD graphics card. So with the Mac, again, when you start doing these AI type projects, the Mac is going to be using, what's it called, Metal? Anyways, it's going to be using Apple's GPU type thing. And that's going to be one of the questions you have to ask is, Is your AI model, is your AI product going to work with Apple's GPU? Again, just because it's got a GPU doesn't mean the piece of software knows what the hell to do with it. It's like with Intel's GPUs that are coming out, which is hilarious. Oh, it's adorable. Intel's coming out with GPUs. I wonder how miserably that's gonna go. Because again, like they could be fine GPUs. They could actually be fine GPUs with good price performance. But if the important software doesn't work with them, it's not going to matter. So I don't know. That's why you got to play around. I do have to say, with a lot of oh, the open source projects, again, like the AI and all that kind of thing. I will say the PC world is generally a pretty good world to go with when you're trying to build this type of stuff. Because I put Linux on this. So I put Linux on here, Ubuntu. I had Windows 11 on it. It came with Windows 11. That got deleted within about 2 hours. But you put Ubuntu onto here, and then you can add all the other things. So you're dealing with Ubuntu as far as device drivers are concerned. But as far as actual hardware is concerned, you're actually dealing with some pretty cool hardware here. So, yeah, I don't know, play. Again, that's you got to reading a book about gambling right now. Nate Silver just did a book on gambling, and I kind of feel like that's a little bit like the tech world. Is you got to bring money to the table. You got to bring money to the table, right? You got a lot of money in your hand, and the question is how much of that money do you got to go through before you get a product that works? And a lot of times you go through all that money plus a little bit more. Like you got to play with it. That's the whole thing. Is you got to play and see what the hell happens. But anyways, so yeah, let's get into the class today. So Silicon Dojo, I think most of you know, authorityless gatekeepers, free to end user hands-on technology education that empowers you to do whatever the hell it is that you want to do. We have the main website, Silicon Dojo. If you've not been here, this is the central thing for everything that we're doing. We have the about, we have our GitHub link, we have a schedule link, we have a forum, we have a member site, we have class videos, the whole 9 yards. The cool thing that I'm currently working on right now is Wix. So we use Wix as the back end. I love Wix. Don't say I'm snarky about everything. I like cool things, and Wix is cool. One of the things that Wix actually has is it actually has its own online self-study education module. So what I can do is I can actually create, on-demand self-study education for you guys just to clip through and learn whatever it is you want to learn. So I'm currently working on the new Python series. Lord help me, it is now 40 modules for introduction to Python, and I'm still working on it. And so what it'll be all, so basically it'll be a block of the text of what you're doing, why it matters, and examples. And then it'll be like a short, like a 5 minute or less video on what the hell is going on. And the idea is you can just go through and you can learn these specific things. If you want to understand what a list is, or a tuple is, or a set is, or whatever else, you can go through and learn at your own speed. If you click on this and become a member, basically you get something that looks like this. Here's what the overview looks like, tells you who the instructor is, and then you can click on a class. And right now, these are an old series of classes I did on Python about a year and a half ago. So we just have this as an introduction to Python series currently, and you can just watch those videos. But when you're done, you just go to the next step. And when you say that you've done it, you can complete the step, and then you can go through and you can learn all the stuff at your leisure. So that's there. Again, I will tell everybody, it is free to end user. It's not actually free. All this stuff costs money. Robots cost money. Again, $250 Jetsons cost $250. If you would like to support what I'm doing, there is a donor box link on Silicon Dojo that you can click on. That'll take you to donor box. If you want to throw in a couple of dollars, preferably monthly, that makes it easier to do budgeting. That would be lovely. If you don't. All the videos, so I have a camera here for Zoom, and I have a camera right beside it that's recording in 4K. All of these videos do get edited. All these classes, there's a video taken, it gets edited, it gets uploaded to YouTube in 4K, and generally it goes up either tonight or the next day if you are looking for that. GitHub, all the material we have. The notes, the code, everything we're going through today is on GitHub, and there is LinkedIn. If you want to follow me on LinkedIn, LinkedIn exists. And Yeah, that's what we got for today. That is that. So now we're going to get into Python templates with Bottle Web App Framework, the simple template engine. Again, if anybody has questions, do make sure you raise your hand in Zoom so I can get to you. Anyways, so if you have questions. So let's talk about my favorite subject, architecture, right? Because if you're used to the old ways of doing web design, web apps, basically everything was just in one file, and that was that. It was very easy. It was very easy. Anybody could build stuff, but there were problems there. There were problems there. So, anyways, we have the modern world. You'll hear about different models for building apps, web apps, a model view controller, a model view template, that type of thing. Basically, the idea here is that you're abstracting out the different components to hopefully make them more reliable and more secure. Again, if you're dealing with Apache back in the day, you had your web server, you had a folder in the web server, and everything sat in that folder. You could actually do a query. You could do FTP instead of doing HTTP. You could do FTTP, and you could go to CNN.com, and you could literally navigate their entire directory structure, which was probably not a great idea. Anyway, so we're in the modern world. We like more security and that kind of stuff. And so we get things like Bottle. And now, basically, again, we have Bottle. So Bottle is a web app framework. This is used for Python. So Python is the core language. Bottle is the framework that goes on top of it. And basically, with Bottle, what we then do is we have our Bottle script that then points to a lot of different resources. So instead of the files being in the same folder, we point to a what's called a static folder that contains all the files. And the idea with a static folder is that this should be somewhere else entirely. This should not even be on this box. The static file folder should be on AWS, or it should be Azure, or it should be whatever, right? So you should set up some kind of storage system, and that storage system is what your Bottle web app is going to point to. Again, as with things with databases, so you have a SQL database, your SQL database should be somewhere else. And then one of the interesting things too is then we get to things called templates, right? So when I've been doing these classes, when I've been showing you how to do things, basically I've been writing out these HTML web pages in the Bottle script itself. And if you'll notice, that gets long and tedious and complicated. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to take out those web pages, put them somewhere else so they're easier to manage? And that's basically where you're going to have a templates folder. Basically, you have what's called a views folder. In the views folder is all of these templates. And so basically, when you need to bring up a web page, when somebody requests a web page from your web app, Bottle is then going to point at one of these templates, and one of these templates is then going to present the finished web page to you. Well, what? So it's nice. It basically puts the view, that template, in a different location. It makes it easier to manage and a whole bunch of other things. One of the big things with using templates is it also actually has security built in, at least a bit of security. Don't get stupid, don't get cocky, don't get stupid, but it does have some security, right? So if you basically create the HTML directly in Bottle and you send that to the user, right? If you do not do things properly, if you do not sanitize that data properly, if you do not clean up and verify the data properly, you could be sending a nasty little bug or virus or God knows what to the end user, right? So if somebody put in information that they weren't supposed to, that might go to the end user. The nice part with templates is the template engine, right? Simple template engine. There's a lot of different template engines out there. But what Simple Template Engine does is it actually sanitizes the variable values that come to it. So you send the variable values to it, to a particular template, and then what's going to happen is it's going to use a template language to dynamically build the web page, plug in all of those variables that got sent to it. And when it plugs in those variables, it's going to clean them up and sanitize them. So using templates is a good idea for any number of reasons. Let's see here. The goal, you're going to learn how to use the simple template engine. This is going to be a big thing. Again, when we're talking about Python, we talk about the Linux world. One of the issues we have in the world of technology is there's 100 ways to skin a cat, right? You got a cat got to be skinned. There's so many ways to do it, right? And the problem with that is everybody does stuff their own way, which gets to be what it is, right? Again, that's going to be the same thing with templates. There's this thing called a template engine, and the template engine is going to take the variable values and the things that are coming from Bottle. It's going to dynamically create that web page, but different template engines do it slightly differently. And wait for it, different template engines use slightly different template languages. So again, this is going to be one of those things where what I'm going to be showing you today will be useful when you go learn Django. So when we do classes on Django, if you know what a template engine is, you'll be like, oh, I know what this is. And then you'll get to learn their template language. So just one of those kind of things to keep in mind. Let's see here. If we go up to setup, again, this is going to be using Bottle. So Bottle is a web app framework. So you're going to need to make sure that Bottle is installed. The next thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to need to make sure what the hell your working directory is. So a lot of times when we run this code, the working directory is going to be your home directory. So basically, what we talk about the working directory is where does Python go to save files or open files, right? There's a lot of ways to move that around, but basically you're going to need to know where that's at. You can run this set of commands. So basically you can use a shell. You can do the os.get current working directory. You can print that out and you can see what your working directory is. The reason is because you're going to need to create a folder called views there. So wherever your working directory is, you're going to need a folder called views and dump it there. That's going to be one of the weird things. It's one of the weird things with all these web app frameworks. Like when you install them or when you use them, for some reason they don't create the folders you would think they would create. Like you would think they would just create views and they would just create static. So static is for static files, views is for template files. There's some other folders that might have to get created, but you actually have to create those folders before you start dumping anything into them. So just keep in mind. When you do save your template files, you're going to have to save it as a .tpl file. So template file is .tpl. I will tell you, I've had some nasty problems with the .tpl file. I don't know if it's my computer or what. I don't know what I have installed. Every time I try to save things, something in VS Code as a .tpl, it thinks it's C++ code and it adds a .h to the end. I about lost my mind. I spent like half a day trying to troubleshoot this. I still can't figure out why the hell it adds a .h to the end, but it does. And here's the thing, a .h file is different than a .tpl file, so you need it to be called .tpl. So if you run into issues, you may, what I found is you create the file, you actually save the file before you put anything in there, and you call it .tpl. It seems to work fine. Or if it adds a little bit to the end, go back and rename it, and hopefully that won't be an issue anymore. I have no idea what the hell's going on with that. So that's a problem. Anyways, just something to keep in mind. So let's take a look at this. So this is going to be a basic script. Okay, yeah, I guess it's going to be a basic script. Let me show you how this works. So hello name. Hello name. There we go. Okay, so this is a very basic Bottle script, as you've probably seen before, right? From Bottle, we're going to import route, run, and now we're going to import template2 as a module, run at localhost at port 8080 down here, as we normally do. We're going to do at route, and for this, we're going to go to a route of hello, and then with a name. Basically, you can put a name in here. This is called a dynamic route. So basically, you can use this value here as a variable value and do something with it in your script. What we're going to be doing now is instead of returning just a page or information or whatever, we're going to return a template. Now, when we return this template, we're not actually naming the template yet. So this is obviously, this is just the HTML code here. So you can just give it HTML code with what is called a template language inside of it, and that will be okay. So all we're going to be doing is we're going to say h1 hello, and then we're going to say the name. The name. So whenever you're doing with variable values in these template languages, it'll be squiggly bracket, variable name, squiggly bracket. So that is how you pass the name of the variable. You do comma, and then what you're going to do is you're going to say basically the variable names that you're passing, and then where that value is coming from, right? So basically, this is the variable name on this side. This is the variable name on this side. So the variable name that I'm sending to this template is going to have the value of whatever the hell name is. Right? So hello, Bob. It will then say hello, Bob, name, Bob. Hello, Bob. That's basically how it works. If we go and we run this, cross our fingers. Go up here. So we do hello. And we say, I don't know, I'm tired of Bob. I'm tired of Bob. We're going to say Timmy, just so you know I'm doing this up. And so it basically says, hello, Timmy. So up here, right? Hello, we send the dynamic route of Timmy. It's able to pick up that value, and then it prints it out there. So this is simply coming from here. Again, if I just wanted to make this a static, I could do name equals Sue. Hopefully this works out. Control S. Then I can run this. We go here again, Timmy. Even though it's Timmy, I statically put in Sue, and so now Sue is here. So when we're talking about these variables, right? So this is the variable that's going to get sent to the template. It is going to equal whatever. Again, it's either going to equal a manual, static thing that you put in here, or it's going to equal a variable value. And so this is basically, again, the very, very basic concept of what these templates are going to look like. Let's see here. When we go over to the next one, so we do static templates. So basically, with a static template, this is actually going to be a template file. So we're going to be returning a template file. And this can just be like a normal HTML web page. So let me go take a look at this. So hello template, and hello temp. Okay. Hello temp. No, what am I doing? Oh, you ever had one of those? How do I get rid of this? Close. Anyways. Uh, Okay, so basically what we're going to be looking at here is we are going to be just presenting a full-fledged template, and this is going to be a static template. So I created this template. It's called hello-template.tpl. So it has to have that TPL extension, and that is going to be in my views directory. So whatever your working directory is, you have a folder called views, and you put that template there. All this is a very static HTML page. H1, hello world. This is a template. Templates are HTML files that you can add variable values to. Basically, that's all that's going on here. We can go over here. This will be the bottle script that will actually deliver the template. Same type of thing we saw before. Template as a function. Route, we're just going to root, define the index. And all we're going to be doing here is going to return template. You put the template name within single quotation marks, and you do not put the .tpl. So you just put the template name. It'll know to add the .tpl to it. If we then run this, and we go over here, we will see it just delivered this. So hello world, this is a template. Templates are HTML files that you can add variable values to, right? So we have the Python, the bottle script that's running here. When you go to this particular page, it goes to the template file, it grabs the information on the template file, and then it returns that to the user. Pretty simple. It gets more complicated. We come down here, we can do includes. So basically, if you want things like a header or a footer, we go over, take a look at this, template include. Let me open up. So that's that. And then we do template include. And then we do, oh, header. Footer. Oops. Why? Anyways, every one of those days. Okay, let's take a look at this for a second. Okay, so basically here, what we have is, again, same thing like we've had before, but we're going to be going and we're going to be returning just a template called template include. And so this template include is going to include other templates. If we go and we take a look at this, then we go to the template include file. And what we have here is we're going to include the header.tpl. So you do put .tpl here. We're going to have some kind of text on a page, and then we're going to have a footer. So include the footer.tpl. So the language, again, the template language that we're using for this, we use the %, space, the include function, whatever the name for the template file we're including, and that is basically how we're going to be able to include it. So headers, you can use this for headers, menus, any kind of information that's going to be reused for multiple different web pages, you can very easily put that in there. If you go and take a look at the header.tpl, you can simply say, see, this is a header. If we take a look at a footer, you simply can see that this is a footer. And so basically, what you're going to have is this is a header, text on a page, and this is a footer. If we go and we actually go and run this thing, we can then come here and we can get the basic idea. So this is where we have the header. This is where we have all the information, all the other information that we'd have on the page, and this is where we would have the footer. Let's see here. Beyond that, oops. One of those days. Okay, let's see here. Beyond that, we can then send variables to our templates. So basically, what we're going to be doing here, and again, this is how the template engine is able to sanitize the values. So you send the variable values to the template engine. The template engine then sanitizes those values to be able to put them up on the screen. If we go take a look at this, var temp. So what we're going to have here is we're going to have a name. And here, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in some extra HTML to show you what's going on. So let's say you have one of those growth hackers out there, and he decides or she decides that they're going to make their name in your forum or whatever else. They want that to be a hyperlink. So when somebody clicks on it, they'll go to their LinkedIn account or their spyware account or whatever else, right? So we have a name, we have a variable value here, and this is just a normal href to go to cnn.com and put the name Bob there. So they're trying to be cute. Bob is going to show up and they want that to be a hyperlink. We don't want that because that would be a disaster for our website. Beyond that, we can come down here, we can create a list. So you can create lists, dictionaries, whatever else, any other kind of variables that are there. And we have item 1, item 2, item 3, and item 4. So all we're going to do now is we're going to go to template. We're going to call the template -var template. So this is going to be dealing with the variables that we're going to send to it. Name, so name that's going to go here is going to equal name. And list, that's here, is going to go there and be list. right? And so those are going to get sent to the template var. And we pull this up. And now all we can see is a very simple script here. So h1 tags, hello, squiggle, squiggle, variable name, squiggle, squiggle. Oops, close h1. That would be bad. Oops. Then we can come down here and we can do a list. So basically we can do a for-x loop. So in order to do a for-x loop, you do squiggle, then you do percentage, for-x in list. So that list that came, we're going to iterate through it. We're going to do item, basically, then we're going to do the variable name. So list item 1, list item 2, list item 3. It's going to loop through, and then we're going to close that list. So we're going to send the name, and we're going to send that list to the web page. If we pull this up, and then we run this, we can go back here, caused an error. X is not defined. Oh, did I mess something up? Did I mess something up? Hold on 1 second. Hold on. Oh, one of those days. One of those days. Nope. Oh, what did I muck up there? Oh. There we go. It sucks doing live classes. Everybody gets to see your errors. What the fuck did I screw up? I screwed up something. Oh, let's look at what I screwed up. Okay. Oh, okay. So you open the unordered list. You close the unordered list. So ignore the code that I said before. Ignore the code that I said. So you do a percentage sign for x in list. Then you do the list item, the X value is here, and then you're going to end the block. This is going to be one of the things in a lot of these template languages is not only do you open a block of code, many times you're also going to have to close a block of code in some fashion. So percentage for X in list, you iterate through, print out the value in list, and then you're going to end it. When you do that, again, you're going to get this. So item 1, item 2, item 3, and item 4, that's simply going to get printed out here. And then this is where, again, I was talking about before, about sanitizing the variable value that's coming through, right? So somebody try to be cute by trying to put an href in there. And the template engine, I didn't have to do any kind of additional code for this to work. It did this for me. Again, if you go and take a look at what the source looks like, this is where basically they modify the text to be something that looks like these things, but HTML or the web browser doesn't actually interact with them like those things. And that's how you can clean up and basically strip out the HTML values, but still have that kind of thing that's showing up on the screen. So yeah, so that's basically what's going on there. And again, so you're going to open the for loop and then you're going to close the for loop. And that's where we have the variable name. Let's see here. If we go down to dictionaries and templates, so we can do this. And basically what we're going to be doing here is going to be creating a little bit of a table. So let's say we pull from a database. So we're pulling from a SQLite database or some kind of database, and we have a whole bunch of information that's going to come back as something called a query set. So we're dealing with a query set. If you're dealing with a dictionary, anything like that, we can iterate through and then be able to print out both the key and the value or whatever information is there. So if we go here, so I'm going to dict temp. Go to dict temp, and so basically this is what our script looks like. Same thing as we've had before, but we're going to be creating a people dictionary, right? So open squiggle, close squiggle. So we're going to have Sue, who's 19 years old. We're going to have Tim, who's 33 years old, and we're going to have Frank, that is 20 years old. We're going to call the template dict template. People, that's going to get sent there, is the value of people that we created here. When we go to the template itself, basically, again, we're going to have that open and close. So this is going to look a lot like, no, going to look a lot like, normal iterating through dictionaries. So percentage sign for student. So basically, this is for the key value, key and value. So for student, age, in people, so the people is the variable that got sent dot items. So this function allows you to separate out the key and the value. We're going to create, so we created a table, we close the table here. We're going to do table row, TD for the block or whatever. Student, so squiggle, squiggle, student, close TD, open TD, squiggle, squiggle, age, close TD, close the entire row. You're going to iterate through for every student that's in that dictionary, and then you're going to get the table. If we go and we actually run this, we can then go through and we can see we get a nice little pretty table here, right? So we have students, Sue is 19, Tim is 33, Frank is 20, blase, blase, blase. So that kind of gives you an idea of how to do that. Let's see here. We're just knocking through this today. You can do if else in these things. So if temp. Again, basically pretty simple stuff here. So we're going to send multiple values to the template this time. So again, so name is going to equal Tim and age is going to equal 50. So imagine you have a website and depending on somebody's age, you want certain things to be shown. If they're over 21, advertise beer to them. If they're under 21, advertise Kool-Aid, whatever, right? So basically, again, we're going to return the template. So template, so we have a template called template hyphen if. Name is going to get sent. So Tim is going to get sent. The age 50 is going to get sent, right? If we go take a look at that template, all we have here is hello, whatever the name is. And again, we have the percentage signs. So we open the if statement here and we close with an end. That's one of the things with the template files is, again, you always have to close those blocks. So if age is greater or equal to 21, you are old enough to see this. Else, you are too young, end. That's all that's going to happen here, right? So if we go and we actually run this, right? So hello, Tim. So Tim is 50 years old. You are old enough to see this. Again, if this was dynamic, if this information was being pulled from somewhere else, and his age is 15, I can run the exact same script. And then when they come here, you are too young. And so it'll be able to dynamically change based off of, oh, what the some certain types of values. So again, that might be something like, oh, with grades. So imagine you're creating this program for a school, and there are different students in different grades, right? So if you're in grade 6, then you want something, you especially can use includes, right? So you could include a web page for the grade 6ers, and you could have a web page for the grade 5ers, and a web page for the grade 3ers or whatever else. And basically, if you're pulling from the database, when I log in, it pulls what grade I'm at. I come to this page, it will then be able to read what grade I'm in, and then it will simply show me the information for that particular grade. And so all of that kind of stuff is dynamically happening here in the templates. And this also starts to give you a better idea. Like when we start talking about front-end developers and back-end developers and full stack developers, this might give you a little bit better idea of what's going on here. Because basically with this, right, with these templates, essentially, this can just be your job, right? You can have a department and all they do is create these templates. You tell them the variables you're sending to them. You tell them the values you're sending to them. Somebody else tells them what the hell this is supposed to look like at the end of the day. And then they just sit here and design, right? So this is simple. This is idiotically simple. But add CSS, add JavaScript, actually build this out to be a real web page, a real web app. And this is where you can have an entire department. Their entire job is designing these things. And then you have a different department whose entire job is figuring this crap out. And then you have a different department whose job is to deal with the databases. So I think once you start seeing this separated out, it starts to give you a better idea when we start talking about that front-end development and back-end development and database administrators, how all this stuff actually functions sort of in the real world. Oh, let's see here. So we did that. That's pretty simple. You can embed Python code into the template. You probably don't want to do this. It's like you can. It's just like you can present the web pages directly from the bottle script, but that's also probably not a good idea. So basically, in the page itself, you can actually do Python code. So let's see here. Do Python temp. Okay. Yep. So basically, what this is here is, again, we have the same thing. Name equals Bob, payment equals 20. So we're doing some kind of payment. And let's say for some reason we want to do processing on the template itself, which generally you don't want to do. Generally, you don't want to do. We go and take a look at the template, Python. Take a look at this. Basically, this is where we have a block of code, and this is where we can actually add straight Python code into the template, right? So if you're trying to do something, sometimes it might be easier. Oh, getting things like time codes. There is some like weird formatting crap where it might just be easier to write this crap in Python. Again, you have to be careful with it. Things that will not allow somebody to compromise the rest of your system, that can be done. But be careful. Again, like, I don't know, again, if you're trying to process a timestamp, maybe just to display things, right? Anyways, all you do, again, hello, the name value. What we do here is this is just pure Python. So angle bracket, percentage, and then percentage close angle bracket. So basically anything within here, you can actually just write stock standard Python code. So total equals 100. So let's say we have a debt that we're trying to pay off. And so for some reason, we're putting that onto the template. So we're saying the total debt is 100. Time equals total divided by payment. So how long will it take how many payments will it take to pay off? Whatever, right? So basically this is being done here. So total is 100, time equals. And so now we can actually call these two because these are actually on the page itself. So H2, it will take this amount of time, so the time value that we created, to pay off the total value here with payments of payment. And so that payment is the value that came in from the bottle script, right? So basically all you do is when you run that, oh, I need to come up with better names. What did I call it? Python temp. Python temp. So when we run this, we can go here and we can see, hello, Bob. It will take 5 whatever payments to pay off 100 with a payment of $20. If we go and we take a look at the source, one of the things you'll notice here in the source is this is not like JavaScript. So again, that's one of the things you got to be thinking about with all of this kind of stuff in architecture. Where does logic happen? And to be clear, most of the logic should happen in Python. Most of the logic should happen in this script right here. But you can move the logic to different places. And so if you move the logic to JavaScript, the important thing to understand when you move it to JavaScript is all of that information is going to get sent to the web browser, and then the web browser will parse it to present whatever the end result is. But if somebody goes and takes a look at the source code, they'll be able to see all the JavaScript and all the information that you sent to the web browser. And so again, if you have proprietary information, personally identifiable information, any of that kind of stuff, that will be here. The good part about the template is basically you're writing this stuff in the template itself, not on the bottle, but in the template, but it still will only send the results. So even though that's ugly, right? Template Python. So even though this is a bit of an ugly way of doing it, the important thing to understand is none of this actually gets sent to the web browser. Only the result of this gets sent to the web browser. Let's see here. If you have a question, raise your hand. I do vaguely look at comments, but I only look at comments at the end. You have to speak up. You have to speak up in here if you want to ask a question during class. Okay, Christopher. What's up, Christopher?
So within that, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so within that code, will, let's say, like a department know to secure that? Because you brought that up before. So, um,
Yeah, that's gonna be one of the big, because again, like one of the things you have to think about with any of this stuff is generally you're not going to be a lone coder. You're going to be working in departments. And the big thing is once you leave this company, some other poor bastard has to actually maintain this. And so that's why I'm saying with this, you basically you want all the intelligence here. Because again, if I'm coming in behind you, this is where I expect to see it. And so even if it's ugly, I'm going to figure out what's going on. That's where I'm saying with this, it's a type of thing where, again, if you have a very specific reason for why you're doing it and you document it and people know what the hell's going on, there might be a reason for doing it. But this is kind of one of those, it's a technical concept. You probably don't want to do it a lot in the real world. Yeah.
thank you.
Yep. Because that can add things like vulnerabilities. Again, everybody's worried about cybersecurity, and so much of real cybersecurity. And one thing that I get frustrated with, so much of real cybersecurity is just good administration and good coding. And so one of the problems is, again, if you have like orphan code just wandering around and nobody really knows that it existed. Like what if this code here was actually processing variable values that were coming in a more complicated way, and again, in your company, institutionally, you forgot that was even happening, right? That's something that a hacker or something might be able to exploit in the future. So, yeah, this is possible. It exists. Be very, very careful of doing it. Let's see here. Okay, CSS and static files. So again, this is where things get a little bit more complicated too. Because again, architecture, 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 architecture. The real fun in technology, I swear, is architecture. So anyways, one of the things you have to be thinking about with this is, right, so we got our bottle script here. So this is where bottle and Python are, right? We have the views folder here, and this is where our templates are. And then remember static files, right? So one of the big things to be thinking about, again, whenever you're using these web app frameworks, is we're abstracting out. We're any type of functionality that can be its own system, we are moving to its own system. The reason that we do that is because any piece of functionality is also a vulnerability. So if you have a web server, that web server is going to be able to provide websites, but it'll also have some vulnerabilities. if you put an FTP server on your web server, that will allow people to upload files to your web server, and it's going to add some more vulnerabilities, right? The more functionality you add to a server, the more vulnerabilities you add to the server. So basically, in this whole bottle world, again, the web app framework world, as we abstract it out. And so one of the things is basically where files are kept, right? So image files, like when you think about files, image files, multimedia files, whatever else, they need to be somewhere else in something called a static folder. And that static folder basically could be anywhere. It could be on your computer. You really want it off on AWS or something like that, but you need a static folder to exist. And one of the important things to understand here is you also need it for things like CSS, right? A style sheet is just as much a static file as a picture is. And so basically, when we're dealing with that, the main thing to be thinking about here is we actually have to create a route for our static files. Static temp. So go take a look at this, and we have this, right? So basically, we have our normal thing. So run route template and static file. So we're going to have a static file here. We're going to have a route name value is going to be Bob. We're going to send Bob to a template called static. So template hyphen static is a template that we're going to be sending it to. But if we go to template hyphen static, one of the things we're going to notice up here is we need the link to our static sheet, to our style sheet, right? So link relation style sheet ref static styles.css, right? So that styles.css has to be somewhere, and that's why we create this route for a static folder right here. So I've created a static folder. So again, in my working directory, there's a views folder and there's also a static folder. So we're going to say at route static and then whatever the file name is. So again, if we go and we take a look at that, right? So static and whatever the file name is. So it's going to go to that particular folder. Define send static the file name. So the file name that's going to come in. I'm going to print the file name out just so I can see it on the screen. And then we're going to return. And so there's a static file function. So the static file function is file name. So the file name that came in and the root. So basically to the static directory that we have here. So this is going to return this path so that it can actually deliver a static file to your web page. If we go and we take a look at the static folder, we can see styles.css, H1, again, background color of red, P, background color of blue, whatever it is that you want. The important thing just to understand here is that is where your style sheet is going to have to reside. If we go and actually run this thing, it'll then run. And we go, there we go. So hello, Bob. We get that in red. This is text with CSS. We get that in blue, right? So, right, we look here. The link for the style sheet goes to static styles.css. We created that path using this. So we actually have a route to those static files. So whenever you're going to be creating the route to the static files, you need two things. One, you need the folder to actually exist. Make sure your file path and all that is correct. And then two, you actually need permissions, or actually more importantly, they need permissions to see it. Again, that whole thing, it works on my computer type of deal. Do remember, especially if you're dealing with Linux or some other computer, if the folder that you're pointing to does not allow other people to view whatever the hell's in your folder, then they're not going to be able to view it. So to be careful with that. Doc Foley, what's up?
Got a question to just basically test my understanding of what we're doing. So
Yep.
the template is just to how to create the web app page, and we're using Bottle. And when someone goes to that web page and they look up the source code, they should only see the template, not everything, because the template is pulling from a data from, say, for instance, we're creating a list and we have everything. They won't see our backend, our data, the data we're pulling from, because it's only seeing the template page. But if we're using style sheets, we have to put that in the template code. So to be able to give color and pictures to our web page. But still, if someone looks up the source code to the template, they will still see the style sheet file, correct?
They'll see. Oh yeah, they'll see the file. Yeah, so they might be able to get to it depending on how you have this done. So yeah, so basically, all right. So the template function calls the template. The template is going to take the static information that it has and the dynamic variable values that are coming in to dynamically write a web page based off of whatever information is here. And then only those results are going to get sent here, right? Hello, Bob, right? So yeah, so only that is going to be sent. I guess with the style sheet with static, if you want to go and take a look at the styles.css, you could be able to take a look at the styles.css. I'm not really sure there's any way to modify that. I'm not sure what the risk would be either.
Could you
So
put it in the? Can you put style sheets in just the views? I mean, like not the views. The other folder you said, so they can't view it, and just have a way to direct it from the template to that folder instead of the views folder.
well, no, but they need to be able to. I mean, the browser needs to see it, so it knows to do this.
Oh, okay.
Right. So, I mean, again, all of this, and that's why I say, like, from a security standpoint, there's probably some security issue here. But again, this is all that's being sent. So, like, whatever your H1 and your P tags are, and whatever else, like theoretically, if you really want to get anal about it, you could have an in sheet styling. So theoretically, you could you could literally state the CSS only for this page with only the elements that you care about. I mean, you could. It's a lot of work. So yeah, I don't. Or you could have different style sheets for different pages if you don't want people to try to be able to figure out what your app looks like doing that. Those are some things to think about.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the things too. Like whenever you're worried about security, because that's one of the interesting things with security nowadays. Everybody gets like hyper whatever aware of security. And like one of the questions you have to ask yourself is, does it matter that much? Again, there's a good book. I'm reading Nate Silver's book, it's like On the Edge or whatever. It's talking about gambling. Anyways, what's really interesting with it is literally one of his quotes is that we spend way too much time worrying about insignificant crap or whatever. We spend way too much time making decisions about things that are relatively insignificant. And so that's one of the things you also have to be thinking about too, is like, okay, if they can see your style sheet, what does that mean? Again, like, and that's actually with you taking a look at it. Like you look at your own style sheet. Like if I look at this and I say H1 is red and P is blue, I'm at a loss for what the security issue is there. I'm at a loss. But, right, if this was a massive style sheet and, I started be getting a lot more specific about classes and things in the style sheet, that might actually be able to tell somebody a lot more about my app. So that's kind of stuff you have to think about. Oh, Chris, what's up?
You literally just answered my question as you were just saying that. So I'll put my hand down. But yeah, my question was that uh from a security aspect, they would be able to tell you know, what the layout is. So regardless if if they pull that up, to see your HTML, it's still going to show if
Yeah.
you're smart enough to see, you know, in front of you what it is than just behind it and, seeing the HTML behind it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's the other thing too, is to be thinking about like looking at things like your style sheets and just asking yourself, are you putting too much descriptive information in there? Again, we talk about that, like there's physical security. Like so physical security is kind of like thinking about the style sheet, but then there's operational security. And so operational security might just be obfuscating what the hell this formatting is about. Right? That's the kind of stuff. Again, you think about it. Yep. Yeah, what's up?
So in your style sheets, I'm not sure if you can do this. In your style sheet, you can put in images, correct?
No, not at all.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
the style sheet is just CSS. All it is CSS.
Okay. That's like a security question I was going to ask, but if you can't put in images, that is good. Thank you.
Yep. No, can't put any images in. Okay, so okay, cool, cool. Let's see what else. We got oh shit, was that it? Yay, we got to the end. Wow, that was a short class. That was an hour class today. So yeah, so that's basically what we're taking a look at with templates then. And essentially the idea here again is that whole idea of the intelligence and all that is happening within Bottle, and then we're sending the information from whatever gets processed here to the template in the views folder that will then dynamically create that web page for us. And again, it's a good way. It's a good thing from a security standpoint, so that you don't screw things up again because you have the sanitization of that type of stuff built in. And it's also good from just a managerial standpoint because you can have certain coders that are responsible for Bottle and other coders that are responsible for the templates. And then you don't run into problems where people are screwing with other people's code, which can be a big issue. So wow, yeah, that went quick. That went quick. That's the class. That's templates. Other questions on templates then? Jack, what's up? What's up, Jack? Yep.
Sorry, I had a question before, but I couldn't answer it. So in the example you gave, when they pull from a database, you said you have three different people working on the sections. You have one person working on templates, one person working on databases, and in the example you gave, and I meant to ask it then, would you be able to use that same, I guess, function to build the dictionary to change the name from Sue to Bob to whatever? But also, like you said, Tim, you are over 21, you're able to see this. Billy, you're not because you're under 21. Can you use that same system for MAC addresses? So if you know if someone's trying to log into some website from a computer, it denies it. But if they're trying to do it from another computer, it allows it.
So web browsers should not give anybody access to the MAC address. So the MAC address, if you don't know, it's called a media access control address. This is a universally unique address. Again, there's this idea, people are worried that the federal government is going to put social security numbers on everybody's computer. Don't worry, it's already been done for 40 years. It's been there for 40 years as part of the Ethernet standard. So that's what he's talking about is basically, could you allow or deny it's called MAC address filtering. It's something done in security. The issue is God help me, your web browser should not get fucking access to the MAC address. So this shouldn't be able to get it, right? If they had some kind of client installed on their computer, so Python itself is able to get a MAC address, but Python has to be running on the computer. So if you created like an agent, so that's what we call agents, is you basically all an agent is a small piece of software that's running on the client's computer. So you could have an agent running on the client's computer that pulls the MAC address and then basically provides that information to your systems so that your systems know this computer should be able to access them. But again, that gets into the whole architecture. Now you start having agents on their computers and they're sending information back, and that's it's its own world. So web browsers do not get MAC addresses. So what could you do? So if you're not doing a web app, so we're going to be doing a framework at some point called tkinter. So with Python, they actually have a GUI framework. So you can actually create desktop applications, graphical user interface desktop applications, right click, left click, that type of thing. So you could provide a tkinter app to your end user. The tkinter is then Python running on their system, so it would be able to get a MAC address. So that would be a way of doing MAC address filtering, but without a lot of additional crap, just a web browser, you're not going to be able to get that MAC address. Oh, Chris, what's up?
So is it possible to get a what you had just mentioned on your computer without even knowing?
Um, in 2024 and in 2000, it was pretty easy. You just drop that crap in. 2024, again, you just got to be you have to be able to convince somebody to install it. So again, like if you had a virus, again, if you've got Windows computers and got viruses running around, again, they could probably a virus that's on your system could install it. Generally, this is the type of thing, though, where you convince your user for good or ill to install your thing. Like, that's one of the big things with the difference between Google Play Store and Apple Store is Apple, again, for good or bad, actually does an adequate job of kind of censoring the types of apps that can be put on iOS devices. Google does a garbage job. And so that's one of the things like in the Android world, like Android is an incredibly secure operating system. If you literally install malware onto it, what are you gonna do, right? And so that's the thing. So by hook or by crook, could you get a Python script running on somebody's computer? Yeah, but you'd either have to get them to install it, or you'd have to come up with your own little virus to get it done. That is somebody else's class. Yeah.
Got it. I just worry about some safety sometimes. That's all, just because of my own experiences. So that's it.
Yeah. And again, that's why I don't use Windows. I mean, Windows is just a horrible operating system for this kind of stuff. And again, like that's one of the big problems, like with like Lenovo. I used to love Lenovo, and again, Lenovo is still good hardware, but
Good.
they started installing. It was like 8 years ago. They literally sent out a batch of freaking computers with spyware essentially installed from the factory. And like that's one of the fundamental issues with Windows is just even when you're buying a brand new computer from the factory, the vendor that's selling it to you might put crap on it, or they do put crap on it. So yeah, yeah,
Well, thank you.
yeah. And that's the other thing too. Like when you talk about installing things, and again, we go back to security and things about like permissions, and that's what I've talked about before with hacking, especially with like things like spear phishing attacks. Remember, any code that tries to execute on your computer is only going to be able to function at whatever privilege level that you have. So there's a user account, there's the administrator account, there's a global administrator account or root account in the Linux world. And so one of the things you have to be thinking about is like one of the issues for cybersecurity is so many administrators are literally checking their email while they're logged in as an administrator. So if they accidentally hit a link, even if they didn't mean to hit the link, if they accidentally hit a link and that fires off, that is going to be able to fire off at the security privilege level that they are currently logged in at. And so that's one of the reasons when you're using computers, you try to, even if you're an administrator, even if you got an MCSE and been doing this crap for 30 years, that's why whenever you're using your computer, you try to use the computer at the lowest privilege level that you can so that that kind of crap won't happen. Let's see here. Module not found error, no module named bottle. Well, that's why you gotta install bottle. Come on, people. Install bottle. Install bottle. Install. Yes, you need the bottle module to be installed for bottle to work. Oh, if I had a koosh ball. If I had a koosh ball. Anyways, let's see here. Can we make some less important logic running on the template to burn less resources in the cloud? No, no, no. The template is still running on the cloud, right? When you move the code to JavaScript, when you do JavaScript, that is a front end language. You send all the text to them, and then their web browser dynamically builds the web page. When you're doing a template, that's all you. That's all you. All this here is still your CPU burn. Whether you burn your CPU here or whether you burn your CPU here, you're still paying for that CPU utilization. So again, so the template, this is dynamically creating the web page and then sending the finished results to the user. So you're not saving any processing power by using templates. That's not what the templates are for. So which is better, JavaScript or create a template? Ha ha. Funny joke, Jack. That's a hilarious joke. What is better is whatever solves your issues. The other thing too is, again, this whole JavaScript thing is getting a little whack. It's getting a little whack. You can put JavaScript in here, right? So I could have that, right? So the template is dynamically writing the page that's being sent to the end user. So in the template, again, it's going to dynamically create the hello, whatever else. But remember what JavaScript does. The big thing that JavaScript does is that front-end language that allows for dynamism on the web browser. Again, it used to be used for drop-down menus, for hovering over items, for form validation, all of that kind of stuff, right? And so basically, when I create this template, again, these are very simple templates. These templates could be 1,000 lines of code, right? And so in that template, I could have JavaScript to do specific things. So all this is doing is dynamically building the web page. If you want to have it write in JavaScript and CSS and all that other kind of stuff, then that's up to you. So this is back-end dynamic building of web page. JavaScript is front-end giving dynamic aspects to the web page. Maybe I need to explain JavaScript better. Is the architecture of services work on shared hosting or just cloud services? Is the architecture of services... Oh, service-oriented architecture? Service-oriented architect. So service-oriented architecture, all service-oriented architecture is that generally you don't own the service, right? It's about abstracting. Again, the concept is abstracting all these components out to be different things, right? So in the old days, you had a box. In that box, we used to have what are called LAMP boxes. LAMP is Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. So that was all on one box. And I was responsible for maintaining all of that crap. All right, so now the idea is that sucks. That sucks. I don't want to do that. So now I just have my bottle box. I just have my bottle box, right? And so my bottle box or my whatever, right? Maybe it's Ruby, might be Ruby, might be PHP, might be God knows what. And so the idea is, instead of like before, storage used to be on my box. And then I was responsible for it, the whole 9 yards. So the idea of service-oriented architecture, SOA, is that storage is now somewhere over here. This may be AWS, this might be DigitalOcean, this might be Azure, this might be your own box. You might have your own NAS, you might have a NAS, or you might have a SAN. Words. You might have words. Anyways, the idea is that this is a storage resource that is now external. And so what service-oriented architecture means is that your bottle will then simply access that. This is now a service that's being provided. Again, where you used to have SQL, your SQL server used to be on your box. You don't want that anymore. So now you connect to somebody else's database service. Again, AWS, or Azure, or DigitalOcean, right? Whoever gives you the best database service. Again, if you want to be able to send SMS messages, back in the day, you used to actually slap in a telephone card. There's telephone cards you can put into a server, and that's how you'd send SMS messages. It would suck. So now you just do Twilio. And so that's all service-oriented architecture is. And so with Bottle, yes, we use service-oriented architecture. But again, you can use that with Ruby or PHP or any programming language. And all that is that you're abstracting out the services to be their own functional components, and then you're connecting to those components, generally using APIs. Yep. Cool, cool, cool. Any more questions? Any more questions? No more questions? Fair enough. I will take an easy day. So yeah, okay. So as things are going here, so we're not going to have another class on Friday. I am trying to work on the that Python introduction series because I do realize that'll make life a lot easier if people can just access that, especially when we're doing these classes. So I'm working on that. So it's here in the United States. We then have Christmas next week. So our next classes will be 2 weeks from now. It might be into the new year, depending on how my schedule goes. We are going to keep doing these. Again, I'm going to try to keep doing about 2 of these classes per week, infinitum, going on. Again, we're just now currently in the holiday season. And since we're in the holiday season anyway, and I've got just a boatload of work to do in order to get that self-paced series done. I'm going to be focusing on that. So yeah, that's about what I got. So if there's no questions, no questions. So with that, I will see you guys in 2 or 3 weeks.